morning, my lovely people. Good to see you again and good to speak to you again, even though I can't see you basically, but I feel like I can see you because we've developed a relationship over a period of time this past few weeks, and it makes me feel like I'm talking to you live and I can see the people I'm talking to. But then that's what feeling is like, and also based on the feedback that I've been getting, I just feel like I'm talking to people that I can actually touch and feel. So it's a very good thing to have. So I just want to start this morning's session by saying a very huge thank you to every one of you who wished me well on my birthday. And then on the 12th of December as well, it was my 10th year wedding anniversary. And the reactions I've been getting on social media, online, and via different medias of contacts, it's been absolutely overwhelming. I did not expect that level of love and appreciation and congratulation and reaction from everyone who really wanted to join in wishing me and my wife well and congratulating us for very successful 10 years of marriage so far. And to be honest with you, that 10 years looked like it flew past. I didn't even know when it clocked 10 years. It just dawned on me that we've been married for 10 years, and it was like we just started, dating yesterday. So it was really a very good feeling, and we had lots of fun. As you can see from some of the pictures and videos we posted on the social media, it was really, really enjoying, and we enjoyed it so much. So that's to say that you made it possible, and you made it also a very, very fun time for us, because the support we got from families, from friends, and from people who are really close to us really spurred us on and really made us realize how special what we have and what we share is to us. So thank you so much once again for all those good wishes. So today I'm going to jump straight into what we need to talk about today. And I know last week we talked about investment risks, but I promised you that this week I was going to talk about your risk profile and how to determine your risk profile to guide you towards the sort of investment you'll be making based on your risk profile. But I'm sorry to say that there has been a change of plan. During the week I've been thinking about this, and I've come to the conclusion that we need to at this stage just sit back and reflect, and because we are going into the new year, and this is the last month of this year, and this probably will be the last episode I'm gonna have with you this year until the new year again. So I just thought, rather than just carrying on doing new topics, why don't we just pause and reflect and look back at the things that we have done in the past weeks and the previous weeks. So that's what I've chosen to do today. And for those who are maybe joining in the first time and who will be watching this for the first time, this is our normal Modesties Monday motivation series, and this is episode 12. This is episode 12. So there are a lot of things that have really inspired me to do this pause and reflect topic today. This is episode 12, and the number 12 rings a bell to me. This is the 12th month, and this is episode 12, happening on the 12th month, and my wedding anniversary was on the 12th of this month, and in the 12th month. So a lot of things in common coming together to really encourage me to do this, to say, okay, let us do something memorable in this 12th episode. So I have timed this episode the 12 lessons from the 12 episodes, because this is the 12th episode. So we've done 11 previous episodes before this, and this is the 12th episode. So today we're going to be talking about the 12 lessons from the 12 episodes. So and also, for the benefit of those who did not embark on this journey with us from the moment we started, it will be an opportunity for them to just catch up on what we have done and said in the past 11 weeks, and this is the 12th week, consistently and consecutively. So, and for those who have been very, very consistent and consistently present in every single episode or series, kudos to you all. It means that we are on to something very special, and we are doing something very important, and people are appreciating it. So 12 lessons from 12 episodes. Now, episode 1 of this Modesty's Monday motivational series. In episode 1, I talked to you about my entrepreneurial journey. So in that entrepreneurial journey, I tried to relive my journey and how far I've come as an entrepreneur in a foreign land here in the UK, to just encourage some people who are experiencing one or two challenges or dilemmas, or whether should I become an entrepreneur or should I still keep my job and all that. So I just wanted to share my journey with you and to connect with you, to let you know that what we are doing is not something out of something extraordinary. It's basically doing ordinary things in an extraordinary way, or in a different way. That is just how you create extraordinary. So my entrepreneurial journey, I talked to you about my background, and I told you, I came from a family with a strong Christian background and Christian values, and I came from a poor family basically. My father left, basically nothing for me before he died. We have 4 boys and 2 girls, and every one of us, we had to make sacrifices along the way, and my mom had to make a lot of sacrifices and all that. We worked ourselves through education, and with the support of families and with support of people around us as well, we managed to get through education. And I came to this country and I decided to become self-employed, and becoming self-employed was born out of my frustration with job search, because after I finished my master's in finance and business management, I went looking for a job like every normal person would do. The frustration of looking for a job and not getting the job that I'm looking for actually made me think, what else can I do for myself apart from looking for a job? Because I was running out of visa. The time of my visa was quickly being run down, and I wasn't achieving anything. So I decided to be self-employed. I went into business. I've done a few businesses since then, and I ran you through the several businesses I've done and several things I've put my hands in while I was here. I set up first of all, we started off working as security subcontractors, and from there we opened an Afro-Caribbean shop. We shut that one down. We went into cargo and shipping businesses from where I was to Nigeria, and then I went into financial services as well, and I've remained in financial services, and now we've added property management and all that into it. So you can see that the journey has taken us from a very modest and humble beginning to where we are now aspiring for bigger things. So it has not been easy. There has been failures along the way, there has been struggles, there has been challenges, and there has been good times as well. So that is just to let you know that the journey of life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You've got to fall, you've got to fail, you've got to get up, pick yourself up, and crack on. And entrepreneurship or self-employment is really not for everybody. Okay, so you've got to be sure that it is right for you. Forget about all the hype around, oh, you have your own time, you have freedom of financial freedom and freedom of that. It doesn't really work like that. You can still be in a paid employment. You can still be in a paid employment and still achieve your lifelong dreams. It's all about the goals you've set for yourself, and it's all about what you're comfortable doing and what your skin is comfortable in. So you've got to be sure that what you're doing is right for you and it makes you happy. If you don't enjoy doing it, don't bother doing it. You see, your background is immaterial if you really want to succeed. Whether you come from a poor home or you come from a rich home or you come from educational disadvantaged background, it really doesn't matter. If you've got the determination to succeed, you will make it. Just keep nicking at it, keep doing it, keep doing what you're doing, be consistent with what you're doing. It will pay off at some time. And like I said, I'm not talking to you like somebody who has arrived. I'm talking to you like somebody who is on a journey and just wanting to embark on that journey with you, and let's go together so that we can go far together. Identify your strengths, develop them, focus on those strengths, and make these strengths the foundation of your aspiration. and trust me, it works, and you'll get there. Because I identified the fact that I wasn't cut out for buying and selling stuff. I was cut out to offer advice, to speak to people, to guide people on what they want to do, and I wanted an avenue to let me do that. Financial services offered me that avenue. I have masters in finance and business management. I am very, very good with finance. So I talk to people, and I have the ability to talk and convince them and guide and advise. So I became a mortgage broker. I became a mortgage advisor. Took the exam, took the training, got qualified, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. The other thing you need to have around is a good family and good relationship. Build a very good family around yourself. Build very good relationship with friends, with clients, with customers, and people that really you can fall back on when you need help, when you need guidance, when you need advice, when you are on your lowest level. People who can lift you up, people you can look up to, and you get encouraged and keep motivated and keep going on. So that was what we talked about in episode 1. In the second episode, we really learned lessons on routines and productivity. That was where I talked about, how routines affect productivity and relationship between routines and productivity. And I said that routines really are things that you do on regular basis, and those things has to be tied into what your goals are. And you have to be consistent with those routines for that to make sense to you. Now, it helps you get organized, because getting organized and orderly requires routine. There has to be a way that you do things every day, and those things have to be consistent. I mentioned how I've started running every morning as part of my early morning routine. I wake up in the morning, I go and do my early morning workout, I run, I come back, I listen to podcasts every morning before I go to work. Podcasts on finance, on properties, on investments, money management, everything that interests me that I want to learn more about, I listen to them on podcasts. I take my children to school, I come to work, I begin to organize what I'm doing, I write out my to-do list, and I tick them off when I achieve each of them and all that. So these routines fit into what my goals are, what I want to achieve for the day, and they help me assess my day at the end of the day to make sure that I have hit the day's target and the day's goals. Whichever one I wasn't able to do, I carry it on to the next day. But then it has to follow a very good order of priority. Make sure the important things are sorted out first, and then the other things will follow. But routines are really very important, because if you don't develop a routine, if your day doesn't have an order and the way you have structured it to work, you will not be as productive as you would love to be. Yeah. Episode 3, we talked about 7 attitudes to success. In those 7 attitudes to success, I just want to pick out a few points that we raised in those 7 attitudes to success when we discussed them in episode 3. And it is, one of them is your attitude towards money. And I said the first thing you've got to do is to understand how money works. Learn about it, and then apply the knowledge that you've learned about it. If you don't understand how money works, you keep working for money rather than making money work for you. It's not something that you are taught in school. The elementary education we got in school was just definition of money and how money is an exchange of value and store of value and all that. Nobody taught us about really how to make money. Nobody teaches you how to make money in school. And nobody teaches you how money works and how you can make money work for you. But these are things that you get to learn along life as you carry on. Because if you don't understand how it works, you keep working for it. We also talked about your attitude towards relationships. Some people treat their friends, their family, and several relationships they're into with utter discontent and contempt. You've really got to show people respect, because respect is reciprocal. If you don't respect your clients, you don't respect your families, you don't respect your friends, you're not going to get that respect in return. So relationship is very good. If you have a very good family around you and you respect everybody's decision in that family, even your children, sometimes you think that your children are really just there for you to take advantage of them. If you sit back and you watch your children and you listen to them, you will learn a lot from them. So relationship is very, very important, and your attitude towards relationship counts a lot towards how successful you are. people are the most important asset you will consider in your life, because if you have nobody around you, no matter how much money you have, you are not successful, because your success is all about your network, and your network goes a long way to determine your net worth. How you treat people determines how they are going to treat you. So your attitude towards relationship is also very, very important. Even if you are working in the office, you develop a relationship with people in the office, and that determines how you are rated and how they are willing to help you or to cover you when you need covering in the office. So it just goes a long way to tell you how important people are around us. And then your attitude to work. Some people don't take their work seriously. They approach work as if they are doing their employers a favor by working with them or working for them. But then if you take your work seriously, you realize that one day you might find somebody working for you, and you would want that person to treat your business the same way you have treated other people's businesses. So if you're working for somebody, take it seriously. Get to work on time. Get to work early. And when you go to work, actually, please go to work. Some people go to work and they end up just playing, whiling away and looking at the time. And your employers think everybody knows what you're doing at work. If you think you're deceiving anybody, you're deceiving yourself. So your attitude to work has to be spot on. Because when you decide to run your own business at any point in time, you will bring the same attitude into your business, and you will run that business down within a very short period of time. So your attitude to work is really, really important. Excuse me. Episode 4, we talked about time management in episode 4. And in time management, I mentioned the importance of planning. Plan your day. Take out time to plan what you have to do for the day. Even if you are unemployed and you stay at home, for goodness sake, there must be things that will have to fill your day and your diaries with things that will actually help you achieve. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm unemployed, I have nothing doing, I'm just going to while away the whole day. If you have a goal of getting out of unemployment into being employed, every single day there has to be a plan. What's your plan for the day to get you closer to the goal? What's your goal? If your goal is to get employed, and you have no plan mapped out every single day that brings you ever closer to achieving that goal, that day is a waste. Because at the end of the day, you reflect on it, you realize that you have wasted the whole day. And then if you're working, you come into your work, you plan your day. The big tasks that you have to do, get them out of the way first. Do the bigger tasks in the morning when the energy level is high and when the energy level is up. Towards the afternoon, the energy level is dropping a little bit. Then you can be squeezing in the smaller tasks into that. The tasks that require the highest level of mental participation, do them in the morning, because that is when the brain functions more optimally. You know, when I finish my early morning exercise and I come into the office and I draw out my plan for the day, I look at the things that I need that are most tasking for me, and I get them out of the way in the morning. Then in the afternoons, I can be looking at stuff like emails and all that if they are not important to me. Those little tasks that are not very, very important, move them, further away, and then in the morning face the bigger ones that are really scary. Once we get those ones out of the way, then the little ones will become easy to fit in. That's all about planning. Prioritize your work. Which one comes first? Which one comes next? Make sure that everything you are doing every single day moves you closer to your goals. And then you must have set your goals for you to know which one moves you closer to it. Deadlines. Set deadlines. Don't just say, I'm going to do this, but you haven't set a deadline on when you're going to achieve it. Those deadlines, they keep you accountable. They make you understand when you need to do this by. If I have to do this within the next 1 hour, do it within the next hour. If you have to do it by the end of the day, make sure it doesn't go beyond that day. It's just about deadlines. If you've got to set deadline for a month or 3 months, just know when you have to do something by, because then you'll be accountable for that thing when you get it done. Episode 5, we talked about budgeting. And I mentioned that budgeting is really very important, but people do not pay that much importance to budgeting. And when you're budgeting, the things we said you should take notice of is to, first of all, identify your income and your debts. Identify your income. How much am I earning? Where is that income coming from? What do I earn in every month? If you don't know how much you're earning, you find it difficult to budget for it. So if you identify your income and where the income is coming from, then you can budget for that income. Also identify your debts. How much am I owing? on credit cards, on other loans that I've taken, on store cards, personal loans that I'm owing people, and all the rest of them. What am I liable for? What are my liabilities? Your debts. Sort out those ones. Know exactly how much you're owing. So when you now place how much you're owing against how much you're earning, it gives you an idea of what your net worth is. And then if you knock off the other expenditures as well, it tells you what your bottom line is. So if you determine your net worth and your expenses, record them. Record what your net worth. This is how much I earn. This is how much I owe. This is how much it costs me every month to run my home or to run my life or to run my business. And then record it. Write it down so that you know exactly what your bottom line is. When you know what your bottom line is, you now know whether you are in positive or you are in negative financially. If you have surplus at the end of that, that's your bottom line. If it means you have disposable income. That your disposable income is the difference between your expenses and your income. When you have knocked off your expenses and the debts you are owing from your income, that is your bottom line, which is your disposable income. If your disposable income is in the positive, that means you have some money left. If your bottom line is in the negative, it means you are owing. It means you are actually spending more than you are earning. But if you have surplus at the bottom line, allocate those funds. Where do you allocate them? You begin to apportion them to either savings, to investments, to your pensions and all that. That's how you deal with the surplus that you've got left. It doesn't mean you have extra money to go and buy one extra shoe or one extra bag. It simply means that you have spent what you need to spend for the month. Whatever is left, I'm allocating it to different things to serve me. That's how you send money on errand and the money starts working for you. Episode 6, we talked about savings. So savings links into budgeting basically, because you cannot save if you haven't budgeted for it. So you've got to budget for your savings first. And when we talk about savings, we first of all said for you to be able to save, you've got to be spending less than you earn. It's very, very important that you do not spend more than what you earn. If you earn £2,000 a month and your credit cards and your expenses are running into £2,500 at the end of every month, you're already in deficit. You can never be rich with that kind of attitude. If you want to be rich or if you want to be wealthy, you've got to spend less than you earn. That is number one. And then when you now have that surplus, you now begin to think about what you're saving for. And when you're saving, have a savings goal. If you're saving for a car, yes, I want to buy a car in the next 1 year, I'm saving for it. If you're saving for a house, I want to buy a house in the next 3 to 5 years, you're already saving for it. If you're saving for a birthday or for any special, and we said start small. You know, if it's a big deal for you to save, start saving a little bit, even if it means like just 10% of your income at the end of every month. It is called paying yourself first. The moment you get paid, the first person you're going to pay is yourself. And how do you pay yourself? By saving. If you just take like 10% of your income and set it aside and say, this is what I'm paying myself for this month, you can live on the remaining 90% if you discipline yourself to do that. Yeah, so we talked about savings. We say spend less than you earn, pay yourself first, delay gratification. We talked about the 72-hour rule. If you have an urge to buy something, if you feel pressed to buy something, have a pause, wait, give it another 72 hours. If the urge to buy that thing or to spend on that thing is still the same thing, it probably is important to you. But if the urge is not the same thing, then it means that thing is not important to you after 72 hours. So you might as well take the money you would have spent on buying that thing or spending on that thing, put it aside in a savings account, and it becomes a savings for you. So you try the 72-hour rule. It worked for me, and it's working for a lot of people as well. Episode 7, we talked about two and retirement planning. And in that episode, we talked about the different kinds of pensions, and where there are basically two major types of pension: state pension and private pension. But we focus more on private pension. Another private pension, we also identified two major types of pensions that we wanted to focus on, and that is direct benefit and direct contribution pensions. Direct benefit pensions are basically final salary pensions, which are very rarely practiced these days. but it's just to give you an overview. If you work for a company that still practices final salary pension, it means at the end of your working life with that company, the company will guarantee to pay you a certain amount for the rest of your life, and that amount is determined by how long you've worked with the company and how long you've been part of the company's pension scheme, and then how much you were earning. Some of the companies average it over how long you've been with the company, and they pay you a certain percentage of that your final salary for life. It's a final salary, so it's a direct benefit pension. Then there is the other personal pension called direct contribution. In this case, there is no guaranteed amount you are going to be getting for the rest of your life. Your pension value is determined by the forces of market demand, demand and supply, and how the market performs, how your investment performs. So what it means that you are contributing into a pension pot, and the risk is on you, no longer on the company. The risk is on you with that pension. You pay in, your employer will pay into that same pension. The performance of that pension investment is what determines what you get when you retire. And we said in the UK here, the pension liberalization has brought about the decision or the policy by the government to allow people access to their pension at the age of 55. So direct contribution pensions means you are setting up a personal pension for yourself. You can set it up yourself, your company can also set it up for you, and then you pay into it. And it so what you draw down on it is hugely dependent on how the markets perform with that pension investment. And there are different ways you can draw it down. The governments in the UK have made it possible for you to draw down 25% of your pension pot tax-free, and the rest, when you draw them down, you get taxed on them if you want to draw them down in lump sum. But the first 25% is tax-free. So you can either draw them down in lump sum or draw them down in installments, or you can use to buy an annuity. That annuity means you bought income for life. It could be for a specified period, it could be for the rest of your life. So you're basically giving your lump sum to an insurance company or to an annuity company to break it down into smaller periodic regular income for you for a specified period of time or for the rest of your life. That is what annuity is all about. So that's how you can draw down on your pension when you want to draw down on that. So you have different options on that. Now, episode 8, we talked about inflation. And inflation is one word that has been coming up very frequently in our very recent episodes. It turns out to be that people have ignored the word inflation for some time. They haven't paid enough attention to it. It is something you really have to pay attention to. Inflation simply means that, the value of money is eroded with time. The value of money drops with time. The purchasing power of money drops with time. So as time goes on, what 20 pounds could buy you 5 years ago, it can no longer buy you 5 years down the line. That is simply because of inflation. It just means that prices of goods and services have been increasing consistently over a period of time, and over that period of time it is now measured, and people will now see that, oh, I wasn't able to buy a bottle of milk for the same amount I was able to buy it 5 years ago, simply because the cost of goods and services have been going up. So I mentioned during the inflation episode that Tom Cressida of financialmentor.com described inflation as a three-headed monster. And those three-headed monsters he referred inflation to are, number one, that inflation cannot be forecast accurately. No matter how hard people have tried to forecast inflation, they have not been able to forecast it accurately. So if you ask anybody what the inflation rate is going to be in 20 years' time, nobody can give you an accurate forecast on that. So that makes inflation a very tricky issue, and people should treat it very carefully. Secondly, he said inflation multiplies your spending. It means that you spend more on the things that you used to spend less on. That's one impact that inflation has on you and your way of life and your lifestyle. So you've got to be sure that while you are you are projecting on your spending in the future years, that inflation is built into it, because you'll be guaranteed that the price of that thing might change, and it will change because of inflation. Now, the third one is that he said inflation reduces your average investment return. So if your investment return doesn't keep up with inflation, there is every possibility that that average investment return will be reduced. So if you have an investment that has promised to pay you 5% over a 5-year period, in the next 5 years, what if inflation has risen to about 7%? So that 5% return on your investment actually means you are earning less, because inflation has wiped off the value of that investment. So it reduces the average investment return. Now, episode 9, we started talking about investment components. We said, okay, instead of talking about investments as a whole, let me break it down to components and begin to talk about the components that make up investments. And I said inflation should have been the first on this series, but because we've talked about inflation already, I decided to talk about another one called leveraging. And simply, leveraging is about borrowed money, using borrowed funds for the purpose of investment. Basically, and that leveraging has some advantages, it has some disadvantages. And we talked about advantages of leveraging. What are the advantages of borrowing money for the purpose of investment? We said, first of all, it helps scale up your investment. If you have £100,000 and you're able to borrow £200,000 more, it means you now have £300,000 to invest in. So it will scale up your level of investments. Instead of £100,000 worth of investment, now you can do £300,000 worth of investment. So it means you'll be operating on a larger scale. That's one advantage of leveraging when it comes to investments. We also talked about inflation wiping away the value of debt. If you borrow that money, say you borrow £200,000 to buy a property, in the next 20 years, if that money was borrowed on interest only, means for the past 20 years you've been paying the bank just interest. At the end of the 20-year period, you still owe the bank £200,000. That £200,000 in 20 years is not the same value as the £200,000 you borrowed 20 years ago. And the property over the period of 20 years would have appreciated in value as well. So that property could have been worth £100,000 when you bought it. That property would have been worth £250,000 when you bought it, and you borrowed £200,000 to add your own £50,000 to buy it. 20 years down the line, the property could be worth £750,000. That is 3 times what it was worth when you bought it. So if you happen to sell that property 20 years down the line and pay the bank back their £200,000, you'll be very well off with £500,000, and it then means that you've been able to make a little bit more on top of it, and inflation has helped you wipe off the value of that debt, not the amount, the value. So that's the difference. I'm not saying that over time inflation means you won't pay back what you owe. You pay back what you owe, but the value of that thing that you owe has been reduced by inflation. That's what leveraging does for you. When you take other people's money to do business, you go to the bank to borrow, and you can leverage on other people's money in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be going to the bank to borrow. Now, the disadvantages of leveraging, we said the cost of the funds will reduce your investment margin. So if you borrowed that money, say at 5% interest, it means for you to even break even at all, the returns on that investment has to be at least 5% margin. So if the return on that investment became like 10% margin, you already know that your net return on that is 5%, not actually the 10%, because you've got to pay back 5% to the person or to the institution that you borrowed the money from. So your margin on investment reduces with leveraging. But if you had used your own money to do that investment, the whole 10% margin will come to you as your full profit. That's the difference. That's where leveraging is a little bit disadvantaged, because it's giving you less margin on your investment. Also, we talked about risk of loss. If you lose that investment, if you lose all the money you put into that investment, you are left with the huge debts that, because if you took money from people with the promise of a return, to return it with interest, and you happen to lose everything you put into that investment, the money you borrowed plus the interest, you are still liable for that. So it leaves you in a risky position if you lose that investment, if you lose what you've invested at any point in time. We also talk about risk of negative equity on that asset. If you borrow that money to buy a property or even stocks and shares, or let's use property, and that property, and there's a property price crash in the economy or in the country where you bought that property. Say you bought a property for £250,000, and then a couple of years down the line, that property reduces in value to £150,000. You're in deep trouble because you borrowed £200,000. Even if you sell the property at £150,000, you are still going to be owing the bank £50,000 before you even talk about your own profit. So there's a risk of negative equity when it comes to leveraging. Those are risks that you've got to bear in mind. But then, some of these disadvantages, for example, the risk of loss, leaving you in all kinds of debts. Yeah, if you diversify that investment, the money you borrowed can actually help you diversify your investment. So if you have, say, £300,000, of which £200,000 was borrowed, it was leveraged, and you have £100,000 of your own money. So if you want to invest in property, it then means that you can actually put down more money in deposit for like 3 or 4 different properties. So you can put down deposits, 25% deposits, for about 4 properties, which is, you can use £100,000 and put down deposits for about 4 properties, and then leverage on the bank's money to buy the remaining ones. So if you have £100,000 of your own money, you can put down 25% deposits on 4 different properties, and then borrow 75% of it to buy 4 different properties. Rather than using £100,000 to buy 1 property, and that's your money, that's 1 property, the risk is higher because you have not spread the risk across. But if you diversify and spread the risk across, leveraging enables you to do that. Okay, episode 10, we talked about the second part of the investment component, which was understanding risk. There were 3 or 4 major risks we identified in that episode. The first one was morbidity risk. The morbidity risk we identified was the risk of you falling sick or being involved in an accident, and what's going to happen to you and your family if that risk occurs. We talked about mortality risk. Mortality risk is the risk of you dying. What's going to happen to your family or your loved ones when you are no longer there, or if death comes suddenly and quicker than you expect. Inflation risk, again, inflation rearing its head up, is about the risk of your money losing value over time. Investment risk, we mentioned, is the risk associated with investments. If I put my money in here, what are the risks? And there's a possibility that you can lose everything you put into that investment. There's also the risk of liquidity when it comes to investments. Can I access my money when I need it? There is also the market. So there are different risks associated with investments when we look at it. So understanding risk in episode 10 was all about the general understanding of risk. But the major thing here is I was looking at investment components, but I didn't want to start talking about investment risk straight away without helping you understand the general concept of risk, which was why we talked about mortality risk, morbidity risk, inflation risk, and we discussed about how you can avert some of these risks, like mortality risk and morbidity risk and all that. You can avert those risks by basically insuring against them. Life insurance, income protection, critical illness insurance can take care of these things. These risks can be taken care of. Inflation risk, we mentioned, make sure that you factor in inflation when you are making your investment decision, so that you don't just grab investment because of the returns that I mentioned and you do not consider what inflation implication is going to be in the future. And then we talked about investment risk. So in episode 11, we now focused on investment risk. Investment risk, we mentioned some of the things that affect investments and some of the risks associated with investments in episode 11, which was just last week. We mentioned market risks, that there is risk in the market where you invest your money. There's a risk that the market could crash. There's a risk of loss in the market because the market is affected by demand and supply. It's affected by news. There's a lot of emotions going on in the market that could affect, the performance of things in the market. And I used Debenhams as an example that went into administration, and people like Mike Ashley, the owner of Sports Direct and Newcastle United, who's one of the major shareholders in Debenhams, he lost everything when Debenhams went into administration, and so did every shareholder in Debenhams. So that's a risk. The company you have bought their shares or you've invested in could go bust, and if you're an ordinary shareholder, you could lose everything that you've got there. Liquidity risk is about the risk of how can I access my funds. If I want to access my funds, how quickly can I access them? Are those investments very, very accessible for you when you want them, or are they long-term investments? And I said, make sure that when you're making long-term investment plans, do not put money that you need in the short term into a long-term investment plan. It's an investment mismatch. So set aside some funds that you need in a short period of time, or in a shorter period of time, and then what you need in a longer period of time, put them in long-term investments, like 5-10 years investment, and you know that money, you don't need it then. Because the risk, the cost of even getting that money back, if it's a long-term investment, will outweigh the benefits. You might want to get the money back, and the company will say, we're going to pay you a lot more less than what you have already put in as penalty. And you've got to accept it because, you did not do your homework, and you did not really plan your investment out very well. We talked about liquidity risk, which we have described. We talked about credit risk. There's a risk that the company that have promised to pay you returns may not even be able to redeem their pledges. They might go bust. Countries and companies go bust. You might buy their bonds, and their bonds promise to pay you 5% at maturity. When the bond matures, there will be no money to pay you, and there is nothing you can do about it. Greece once found themselves in a situation where they were at the risk of defaulting on their on their debts. Greece was a country at that time, so there was the financial crisis put a lot of countries in in a financial mess, and a lot of companies as well. So they float bonds, and you have to look at the credit rating of these countries and these companies when you are making investment decisions. Longevity risk is another one we discussed. Actually, it just means, am I going to die before my money, or is my money going to die before me? Is my money going to last me for as long as I live? That's another risk of the investment. Okay? Inflation risk as well. We have discussed inflation before, but those are the risks that we mentioned in investment that you have to be aware of, or be aware of, rather, when you're making investment decisions to help you make informed decisions. Now, episode 12, which is today, there is nothing special to talk about today. I have just termed today a Christmas finance. It's Christmas, and we're all excited about Christmas, and we're all looking forward to Christmas celebrations. But I just want us to learn a few lessons, in a Christmas finance. Please, in this Christmas, do not overspend. Know what your pocket is and what your pocket can carry. And please do not, in the frenzy and in the name of trying to impress everybody, spend more than what you're earning. Please spend less than what you earn. There will be many, many more Christmases to spend. And there will be many, many more opportunities for you to impress, if you at all you are pressed by that. But do not think that it all has to happen in this Christmas. No. A few Christmases have come and gone, and a few more are on their way. So in the frenzy and the excitement of Christmas, please do not spend more than what you earn. I've been listening to adverts on the radio this Christmas, and every Christmas there are certain adverts and there are certain messages that are always coming across when you see all those adverts, especially adverts on credit cards. You notice that during Christmas, adverts on credit cards are really shooting up, because they know that people are really tempted to spend. And the moment they start taking credit cards to spend, it simply means you are spending more than what you're earning, because those credit cards will be paid off by January. And in January, we all know what finances are like in January. So start planning for the next Christmas immediately after this one. If you want to have a lovely Christmas, know how much your Christmas will cost you and start saving towards it from the 26th of December, in fact. Start saving towards the next Christmas, because that is how your Christmas will be made easier for you. If you don't save towards it and it comes to Christmas and you start borrowing up and down to spend Christmas, you are not making a very wise financial decision. Now remember to remain disciplined in the face of temptation. Excuse me. For some who have fitness and health goals, Christmas is a very tempting time to go out there and just eat anything that you want to eat. That's fine, have fun. I'm not going to stop you from having fun, but keep your goals in mind. If you have financial goals, keep them in mind. That's the time to remain disciplined even in the face of temptation. Start setting New Year goals from Christmas. Okay, while you are spending your Christmas and enjoying yourself, start setting your New Year goals. 2020 is already upon us. Start setting your New Year goals from Christmas. And finally, I just want to encourage you to enjoy your Christmas in full, but please enjoy it responsibly. Do not let anybody tell you that the Christmas is not time for enjoy. It is time for you to enjoy it. Enjoy the Christmas in full, but please enjoy it responsibly, because after Christmas it's January and we all know what's coming. But please do not be caught out, so that you will have much more fun in the forthcoming year. Thank you so much, and just to let you know that this is the last episode for this year, and I'm going to see you guys again in January. And when we start, we're going to start on a brand new note. I'm going to come in with some very, very interesting things to talk about. So if there is anything you want us to talk about in the new year, please feel free to comment on it and send me a message and say, please, can you talk about this in the new year, in the new episode? And I will very much like to help if I can. If I can't, I will just let you know. But if there is anything of interest to you, I want to make sure that I'm bringing contents to you that are relevant to you, and not just what I think are relevant to you. Because as I said, we are on this journey together, and I want us to embark on this journey together and succeed together. So God bless you, and do have a wonderful Christmas and a splendid New Year. Thank you. Bye.